before we start, because of everything I'm about to rant about, I have a Patreon link in the description. And if you can support us on Patreon, you'll get access to a ton of exclusive stuff. You'll be able to play everything that I'm working on right now. You'll be helping preserve the classic Fancy Pants Adventures games and save Fancy Pants Man from Flash. And since the Patreon's still new, I'll be putting everybody's name in a new room in the World 1 remaster, as you can see here. So if you want Fancy Pants Man jumping on your name, which I'm sure everyone has, now's your chance. And hey, patrons, we need to figure out what's going to be at the top of this room. Anyway, I hate intros as much as the next guy, so let's get to the video. What's up, everyone? This is Bradborn, and this is a rant that's been a long time coming, I think. Now, I've been a Flash developer for over a decade now, and whenever Flash animators and developers get together, we tend to complain about everything that's wrong with Flash. But that comes with the understanding that we're only there because we're Flash developers. There's many reasons that we chose Flash, and there's many things that Flash does that works particularly well for us. You don't have to explain the impact of the Flash community or the animation-heavy, designer-centric workflow that Flash used. And I'm only bringing that up because, you know, now that I'm going to actually complain about Flash, defending it's not really something that I'm used to doing. But with the internet crying Flash is dead even louder than usual, I thought it would make for a good video. So sit back, listen, enjoying this beautiful time-lapse of Cutie Pants being animated, which has its own wonderful sort of irony. And I'm going to talk a bit about why the death of Flash is greatly exaggerated, and at the same time, not really a bad thing. First off, I don't think Flash itself ever got its due, even when it was at its prime. I remember, and honestly, this is why I wanted to make this rant. It's going to be more about this, but Flash developer talks about the death of Flash is way better clickbait, so I went with that. Pretty recently, I was watching a YouTube video that was discussing one of YouTube's earliest viral hits. I'm sure everybody's seen the video, but at the time it only had about 4 million views. Now, 4 million views is nothing for a Flash game. So we have a guy making a dumb song on YouTube, getting not really what I thought of as that many views, and then he's on The Late Show, NTV, and cameos, and just you become a celebrity for doing something that couldn't imagine was even really a big deal. And a while ago, I mean, back when the whole viral video thing was starting to become a thing, there was like a fake interview. You know, he said, now that you're a viral success with over 1 million views, and man, at that time we had like over 300 million plays on the Fancy Pants series. And I don't know if just because the numbers were never just like one number, but for almost all Flash games, this is something that people are playing because they want to. It's not a dumb song or a video with shock value that they're sending to their friends. But I've never seen a celebration at the kind of numbers that Flash games can reach. And that's not just me complaining about my own games getting enough praise or anything, because it wasn't even one of the top performing games back then. But man, it just killed me to see when it was big news that like Angry Birds had 1 million downloads. And then 100 million, like, okay. So I just think Flash never gets the credit it deserves for how many people it can reach. I've gotten emails from people, like a soldier while he was stationed, saying that one of the few things you could play were my games. And many people saying that it was their childhood because all they could do was play online games. I don't mean to brag about that, but that's just something that Flash made possible. I remember the first time when a page was bragging that HTML5 could play a sound. And so that brings me to, of course, why was Flash so disrespected? I mean, I think we all know the answer to that. Flash became synonymous with terrible ads and holding back YouTube once they started going to high-definition video. And Flash should have never been used for either of those things. It was always terrible at that. Flash only worked when it was the one thing that you wanted to do because it sacrificed efficiency for a format that more artistically minded people were able to utilize. And nowadays, that's why I think that clicking to enable Flash is the best compromise. And I think it could let Flash exist even when HTML5 has taken over those duties. But congratulations, you memed Flash is dead, and here we are now. And I say the reports of Flash deaths are greatly exaggerated because Flash isn't just Flash Player, it's not just the delivery mechanism. The Flash Player's always been terrible. I'll say that as a Flash developer, after Flash Player 9, it was garbage. I remember updating once and clicking play and realizing it couldn't even hold a solid 30 frames a second. But we need to divorce Flash Player from the actual tools. And actually, that's exactly what Adobe's doing. The program that makes Flash movies is now called Animate. And Adobe's been pushing the animation and just the drawing tools to be way, way better than they ever were in Flash, which I think is absolutely the right move. So now it actually makes sense to use Animate CC, artist formerly known as Flash, to animate for any game engine. Now the biggest problem here is they're giving up the one thing that made Flash better than everything else, especially when we're all on much slower internet, and that's the vector renderer. Instead of making the actual Flash program good, they just renamed the actual creation program and just made another tool to export boring old sprite sheets which take up way more memory. Fancy Pants Man has over 4,000 frames of animation at this point. And everything unique about the Fancy Pants Adventures series was made possible because of how Flash works. The ground's all slope instead of a tile set because I could just draw it straight into the program. And Fancy Pants Man feels the way he does because I can tie the animation directly into the code. And because of how prolific Flash games were. At this point, Flash game's a genre, as well as a style of game. I mean, most games on mobile right now look like Flash games. And every single one of those games that wasn't made in Flash, to animate, should be thought of as a loss for Adobe. So that brings me to, why aren't these games made in Flash? And the one simple reason is just that it doesn't run on the hardware. It doesn't run on the GPU. And on mobile, you need to, or you're going to waste all the battery. And every single solution Adobe's had is always a stopgap solution. Either only runs on mobile or it exports everything as bitmap, which isn't going to quite work for my thousands of frames of animation. On iOS, Animate can compile to native iOS code, but it can't do that for Android or PC or Mac. And for a long time, I wasted a lot of time looking into Scaleform, which takes Flash's vector graphics and triangulates them, which can be then run on the GPU. And this runs Flash content so much faster than Flash Player does. But that was from Autodesk, and the smaller indie version was never really supported that well. I was able to release Super Fancy Pants Adventures as a legit hardware-accelerated game because of the Starling framework. It was basically easier to make an animation program act like a real game engine than it is to get a game engine to run all the animation. And shout out to Daniel for that one because Starling was a lifesaver. But I still had to cache everything as the game loaded. It took a bit of time, but I still got the best of both worlds. All the assets were very, very tiny, and then were hardware accelerated once they were cached. But at the same time, I shouldn't have to do that. That's insane. If they could just triangulate the vectors, are we getting good in the nerd talk here? They would just absolutely dominate the App Store. And to push the Fancy Pants Adventures series forward, that's basically what I need to do. I'm working with a programmer who's way smarter than me, 2D Ray if you're brushed up on your Flash history. And we've worked out a method for pulling vector animations out of Flash, importing them into Unity, where Unity can then figure out the triangles and shoot them off to the GPU. And why do I need a whole other program to do this? Why did Unity support it before Adobe can? What the hell is going on? Anyway, the plan right now is to get the older games in the newest engine, and I talked about this in the last video, but I'm also using the opportunity to make Cutie Pants playable for the first time, so that I can release the older games on mobile in the short term, and eventually port them all over to an engine that will allow us to have them in HTML5 online. And of course, if you can support the process, you'll be able to play the World 1 remaster as I work on it, and of course play as Cutie Pants right now. And of course get your name stomped on in all future videos and in the game releases themselves. Honestly, I'm just worried about the future of Flash. Well, Adobe's already given up on it, so... More importantly, I'm worried about the future of my own games. Like I said, a lot of what was unique about the Fancy Pants Adventures did rely on Flash, so it's not an easy process to port them over. But if I focus on smaller projects like bringing the older games over first, as well as making a brand new smaller game along the lines of 2 or 3, we'll be in a good position to work on the next generation of the Fancy Pants Adventures. And if you're a patron, you'll be kept in the loop, you'll be able to play whatever I'm working on and give feedback, and complain about whatever you want. Well, I guess that about does it for this little rant. And man, I still wish Adobe could get it together. Animate's shaping up to be a really, really good animation program, and I'm still going to use it in the future, even for the new games. But if Air itself could run everything hardware accelerated at whatever resolution it needs to, and could export native code to PC, Mac, consoles, then I think you'd be seeing some very different types of games from some very different types of minds. And just a reminder, all my older games are playable for free on my site, And the latest installment of Fancy Pants Adventures, Super Fancy Pants Adventures, is available now on Steam and mobile, so if you're craving some more fancy pants, check that out. Come yell at me in our Discord, and of course, stay fancy, my friends.